And this will be a recorded video for any of you who want to come back and watch this again. It'll be available on our YouTube channel in about 24 hours. And welcome to the Rec Innovation Lab. Welcome to our guest today. It's Chakri Bokka. Did I say your name right?
You got that right, Tanya. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, thank you so much. And just to let everybody know, Chakri was came to us today through our connection, one of our partners, which is 21IQ Labs. And so we're really grateful to 21IQ Labs for bringing Chakri here today to speak with us. And you know, I think I'll just go ahead and pass it on to you and learn about project management.
Sure, Tanya. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure talking with you folks today. It's amazing what you guys have done so far as your entrepreneurship journey. Like Tanya said, I just wanted to speak at a high level about project management. That's what I do in and out. As far as my background, as you can see on the screen, I'm a techie. I have a bachelor's in engineering, a master's in business analytics. I've worked extensively with project management offices in the IT sector. I've been an entrepreneur in the past, so I do relate with you guys. My day job is as a senior project/program manager. I also volunteer heavily with Project Management Institute. So this is a professional organization of about 2 million people all over the world. So that's about me. So in terms of what you can expect out of this, I know each one of you are on your startup journeys and you have some exciting products and services coming up. So as we are going through this, I want to make sure that you guys are thinking through your journey on how you make your product or service into a reality, how you can come up with a plan and how you can break things down so you can achieve them as you are targeting some of the larger objectives there. How do you deal with the unknowns in a project? How do you adapt to the change? And I'm pretty sure, just like most entrepreneurs, you guys have limited resources, whether it is time, money, or requirements. So how do we bring everything together and be successful in your journey? I think that's what I want you to take away from this. So throughout this, I'll be emphasizing on these aspects here. So I'll go over what a project is, what project management is, and then what a project manager does, and who a sponsor is, and what stakeholder means in this context. So think of all of this as roles. You guys are CEOs, CFOs, CMOs. These are all different roles. In a way, you have project manager as a role as well. And then I'll be talking about how we map some of these into the various process groups that are pretty standard in the project management. This is like a framework, the initiation of the project, how you plan for it, what happens in the execution phase, and what happens during the monitoring phase, and then finally, we close down the project. So don't worry about the jargon. It will be very clear to you guys as we go through. Okay, so as far as a project, it is something of a temporary initiative. It has a beginning and an end, unlike some of your ongoing initiatives. It's going to involve lot of resources. It is going to be time bound and of course limited budget, and just like most of the products or services that you folks are developing, there will be a lot of these interrelated tasks, highly dependent on each other. And in order for your project to be successful, it's always best to plan it out. you can get in and just start working on your products and services, but it's much better and it's much more controlled and it's much more productive if you plan out and use some of the frameworks that are already available. So that's a project. What does a project manager do when we have all these different resources in the organization? They essentially own the project. They make sure that everything is planned out and everybody is working together. They have the necessary resources, everything is being communicated. Essentially, they are responsible for all aspects of the project itself. Then what is project management, right? So you know about project, you know about project manager. Project management is this framework. It's an approach on how you manage your projects. I'm not sure if you folks heard of PMBOK. PMBOK is Project Management Body of Knowledge. They define this as a set of different skills and techniques and knowledge and process areas that will help all your projects from start to beginning so you're successful. So that's simply what project management is about. Who are the sponsors? A typical startup, you would have your CEOs, CFOs, or marketing organizations. Any of them could come up with a project and say, okay, I'm going to allocate about $50,000 for this specific project. So that's your sponsor. And you need to make sure that you gather the requirements from the sponsor and also come up with the success criteria on what the sponsor is looking to achieve out of this project. And then we have stakeholders that are part of this project initiatives. It could be anybody that is related. It could be your management, employees, any partners in your ecosystem, your vendors, your developers, your third-party suppliers, anybody that's remotely related to your project can be a stakeholder. So that's about all the different terms. And then I'm going to go a little deeper into the process groups here. So if we were to look at this slide here from left to right, you have, I think it's pretty straightforward here. You can see the initiate, plan, execute, and then monitor and control that goes throughout as a loop. And then at the end, we close out the project. Let's see what each of these process groups entail. So when you come up with a project, you need to make sure to have a project charter. That's what you decide on what the project is. And then the plan provides the detailed elements on how you're going to accomplish that. And then execute phase is all about getting things done. And then the monitor and control phase is making sure that you're aware of any changes that are being introduced, you plan for them dynamically, and then implement in your execution plan. So this is at a high level. I just skimmed through it, but I want to make sure that I go through it a little more in depth here. So let's talk about the initiate. So this is when, let's say one of your marketing officers comes about and says, hey, we need to come up with a social media campaign. You need to, let me jump into the next slide here. So you need to really make sure that you think through some of the higher level commitments of this project here. You need to reach to an agreement with your sponsor here. Make sure that whatever you are doing is going to align with the organizational goals. So that's what this is about. So how does this actually look from an execution standpoint? So if you're talking about a marketing initiative, a social media campaign in this case, let's say, you come up with a high-level idea of what it is. That is your scope. You also need to make sure to jot down on what it is not, right? You need to define the boundaries and the requirements. Why you are doing this? That actually is because you need to align it with your organization goal. You don't want to spend money on initiatives that do not align with your organization. It's always important to have some kind of a success criteria, and then have a higher level idea of what your budgets and resources are going to be. And then, like I said, projects are time bound. So you need to make sure that you have a milestone. And then who are the different stakeholders that are part of this? And then who is going to be responsible to run this, and how we are going to fund this? So these are all the areas that you need to get a little write-up going on. That is called a project charter. This is not a detailed project plan. This is at a high level. It can be as little as a Word document. Just to jot down everything, write it down, and make sure that, because most of these projects could go anything from a couple of weeks to maybe a couple of months to maybe a year. So you want to make sure that whatever you thought through in the initial phase is what you are tracking throughout the life cycle of the project. And everybody has agreed to it upfront. So that's your project charter in your initiation phase. It's always a good idea to make sure that you bring in all your stakeholders and get an agreement upfront. It's okay if things change at a later time, but you need to make sure that you always have that initial commitment. So that's kind of like your project kickoff. So that's your initiation phase. Let's go into the planning phase here. This is where we're going to spend a little bit of time on what we are going to actually do in the planning phase. So now you have decided to do a social media campaign. That's your project. Now you need to plan out for different areas of your project, whether it is the scope, how much time this initiative is going to take, how much it's going to cost, what kind of quality you are expecting out of this, and how you're going to make sure that you deliver a quality product or service out of this, what kind of risks you are anticipating, who you are going to purchase some of these services from, who are you going to, your developers or your resources that are going to work on this. How will you make sure that everybody is informed and communicated? So these are all the different pieces of planning that you need to think through. Now, if we were to go a little deeper into the scope, some of the questions that you need to answer are essentially, what kind of features would you like to produce out of this project? What kind of services are you planning on? A little bit of detail on each of these features and services, and what are your constraints, and what you're not going to accomplish out of this, because you don't want to leave everything for assumptions. You want to make sure that you're really clear. This is a good time to make sure that all the stakeholders are buying in on what the scope is, because this is what really determines your budget and timeline aspects as well. in the project management jargon, we use something called a work breakdown structure. So this is essentially a project breaking down into some of the smaller milestones and elements. So that's what's essentially a work breakdown structure from a scope standpoint. So that's your project scope. And then the time. So this is where you need to plan out all the activities. What does it take to go from start to finish? So going back to that example of social media campaign, you need to develop various aspects of it, whether it is coming up with a marketing message for your Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn or Twitter, and then signing up for all these different social media websites and coming up with the content, the images, copyrighted content, things like that. So make sure that you have all that activities planned out and sequenced. So this is where you need to create a schedule for each of these activities. So that's your the time that goes into planning for the overall project. The cost, like I said, nobody has unlimited resources. So you need to make sure to plan how much each of these is going to cost, whether it is something that you're going to spend on these subscriptions, the resources that are going to work on your tasks, or some of the overhead, like your office supplies, internet, things like that. So those are your costs. And then the quality. So oftentimes this is something that gets ignored. And this is where you need to make sure to come up with a plan on what quality means for your project and how you're going to ensure you track the bugs or any other issues that come out of this that could compromise the quality of your deliverables. And then the risks. You may not be able to capture all the risks upfront, but it's always a good idea to start with those that are known in the industry. Like, for example, the social media campaigns. You need to jot down whatever risks that are available to you at that time, and then you can keep adding to that. And then come up with a mitigation plan for each of those risks. What are you going to do when you come across those risks? And then purchasing. So if you have any third-party vendors, I've seen this where we often tend to ignore passing on the right information to them ahead of the time. So putting them in the loop ahead of the time is always going to help. So that's your purchasing plan. Resources. Resources is going to be another critical area that you need to focus on, making sure that you have the right type of skill set at the right time and at the right cost. All of this is going to take quite a bit of planning ahead of time. And all the activities that need to be performed by each of these members, they need to know ahead of the time, and they need to understand the requirements, the scope, the background, the outcome. So that's where you need to provide sufficient training and information to the teams. As a project manager, you also need to provide a sense of motivation for them, looking up to the success of the project. So that's your people element. Communication, I can't tell you how much important this is because there's a lot of moving parts between various resources, whether it is third-party resources and different deadlines that you have and the tight timelines and really tight budgets and deliverables. It's really important to make sure that you have all these different types of communications established upfront and come up with a cadence. You need to think upfront on what you're going to communicate every day, every week, what you're going to communicate with your sponsors, your third-party vendors, with your team members, whether it's going to be a written communication or you're going to have a meeting every day. And there is going to be non-verbal communication as well. Let's say you have a really important deliverable and you need to get a buy-in from a sponsor. Sometimes it's best to meet ahead of the time with the sponsor, provide them the context, and they are in line with what you're going to propose in an official scenario. So as a project manager, this is going to be where you spend quite a bit of time, where you need to ensure that there are no gaps in communication and no wastage of time, and also ensure that everybody is in line and everybody has the right positive commitment to the project. So this is where it's going to be really critical for the communication standpoint. So these are all the different pieces of the puzzle here. We talked about the scope, the time, the cost, the quality, the risk elements, and your third-party vendors and the resources and the communication aspects. So these are all the different areas where you need to plan out thoroughly, and this is all coming up in your planning phase. So going back to that slide, just a quick recap here. So we were in the initiation phase, and then we went on to the planning phase. In the planning phase, we spent a little bit of time on determining how we are going to accomplish our project. Now we are going to move on to the execution phase. So this is when the rubber meets the road, right? So this is when we actually get the work going. So let's see how we do that. So you have all your plans, whether it is a plan for your scope or timeline or cost or quality towards producing your product service. And essentially, it's an outcome that you're going to produce out of this. So a project manager plays a pretty critical role here. Like I mentioned earlier, project manager is somebody that is going to be there throughout the project, and they're going to work during the initiation phase with the sponsors, making sure that the charter is signed, and also work with the various resources in planning out the different areas of the project, whether it is scope, timeline, or communication. They essentially organize in a way that makes the best productive output for the project itself. They're going to assign work based on the work breakdown structure and the dependencies that are already established within your project activities. They're going to essentially be the point person to assign as well as direct and make sure that everything is being managed for the original project plan. They are this central orchestrator that will be communicating with all the stakeholders. Not to say that the stakeholders will be communicating amongst themselves. That will be happening as well, but project manager really ensures that there is communication in all areas. And then it's always, I would say, mandatory to measure your progress, come up with some kind of metrics, whether it is timeline and the type of output that you plan on achieving. Let's say your social media campaign project, if it's going to take place over the next 2 months, you need to have some kind of metrics on what you are going to achieve in the next 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This is a good way to make sure you have you're making the necessary progress. If not, you need to go a little deeper and see where you are missing and maybe emphasizing a little more in those areas. And then quality, it's always best to have some of these checkpoints up front. You don't want to go all the way to the end and learn that you're missing out on the quality aspects. You don't want to spend all the time up front, because that's going to be a waste of quite a bit of your resources. While the project manager is doing all of that, you have the project team that is doing some of the other, most of the other work, whether it's your developers, whether it's your business analysts. And the sponsor, meanwhile, is funding the project, and they could be doing this in multiple phases as well as your project is phased out. And a sponsor actually does an important role as well. They essentially are somebody that really promote the project, and this is really important because a project is a temporary initiative, and it's often possible that people may have multiple tasks that are with them at any given point. So a sponsor really highlights the importance of the project and then reminds everybody on how critical this is so they can contribute by working on their specific tasks. And the stakeholders, they need to absorb information, whether it is a portal that you have or some kind of email campaign that the project manager is sending out, or one of the stakeholder, or maybe a sponsor is sending out. They need to engage themselves in all the activities. They need to proactively seek information and disseminate the information. So that is the execute phase, where things are set in motion. Let's go back to the social media campaign. It's about a 2-month project. Like I said initially, we thought through some of the planning processes, planning areas, and then we said, okay, let's go and get it done. And then about a month into the project, let's say something changes, right? You probably have a change of resource. So how will you deal with something like that? So change is constant, right? Nothing is constant, I would say. You always have to recognize that there is going to be change, and there are going to be areas that are going to impact your cost. If let's say a resource change is required, you may need to bring in a resource in the last minute, and they may cost a little more. Not only that, they will take some more time to understand where the project is. So that's going to delay your timeline. They may not completely understand the background, so that may be jeopardizing some of the quality aspects. So these are the risks and different elements that you need to recognize and plan for that. You may want to factor in some additional time for that resource so they can get up to speed and come up to the same level of velocity that the entire project is running on. And whether you're undergoing a change or whether you're going according to your plan, it's always imperative to compare the results to what you have originally planned. And it's okay to change the plans as long as there is a legitimate reason. When we initially come up with a plan, we call it a baseline plan. But as you're making changes, which is not desired, but if it is needed, you could do that. But you need to make sure you need to communicate to all the stakeholders, most importantly, your sponsors, and whether it is resulting in any of your budgetary changes or if this is going to impact any of your deliverables as well. So communication is the key here. As you're working through all these different tasks, active listening is going to definitely help, as your stakeholders are going to give you some hints on how their tasks are being worked on, whether they're delaying some of their tasks because of some other priority that the company has assigned them, or whether the output that they're working on is not turning out as per the original plan. You may need to turn around and make some changes to that. So it's a good idea not to ignore all of that, and then just make sure as a project manager, listen to everything that's going on and come up with areas where you need to address. So recognizing change is really essential as a part of your execution phase. So that's, so just to quickly go back, we went through the initiation phase, the planning, and then once we are done with all the different aspects of executing your tasks, the final phase of the project is going to be wrapping it up. So going back to your example of the social media campaign, you're, let's say, in the final week, you're ready to push out your social media campaign to the various social media outlets here. So let's see what goes on when your project is completed. It's always a good idea to go back to your scope and check off everything that is completed. All your activities need to be reviewed as well. Over a period of 2 months, you might have focused on something that is really critical, but may have ignored some other aspects. So it's always a good idea to go back and check what your output is and what you have planned, and compare it with the final product or service that you're obtaining out of your project. And then doing a little bit of retrospective on how the project has turned out, lessons learned, because as a company, as a startup, as an organization, you will have a lot more opportunities to execute projects. It's a good idea to document what went right, what did not go right, whether, let's say, for example, you relied on a third party for your software development. Maybe it did not work out well because their focus may have been different. You may have sequenced some of your activities in a particular way that may not have produced the best result. These are all the different aspects that you can make note of and ensure that you utilize all that intelligence for your next set of projects. And then once everything is said and done, if you remember, we talked about during the charter phase to jot down what the success criteria is going to look like for the project. So this is when we are going to demonstrate back to the sponsors and the stakeholders on what the final product is. Make sure that whoever is the customer is completely satisfied with the outcome. Ensure that your subcontractors are closing out their projects. Make sure their invoices are finalized and approved and paid off. And then all this hard work, you also make sure that you celebrate with a little recognition and as a token of appreciation for all the hard work that the team has put into this. So this is about your lessons learned, what went well, what did not go well. I know we already talked about this. So this is what I wanted to cover in terms of essentials of project management. I'm going to summarize this a little bit and then leave some time for Q&A. I know I breezed through some of this in the interest of time, but feel free to ask me any questions in any of these areas. Let me quickly summarize this and then I'll pause for questions after this. So I know we went over this. So going back to our initiate phase, so just to recap, this is where we ensure that the project is really aligned to the organizational goals and objectives. So as an entrepreneur, you have a vision and a mission for your startup, and you need to align whatever you're doing to that, in order to spend your time and cost and whatever resources that you're bringing in are really producing the necessary output that you intend to. That's where your initiation phase is about. And then the planning phase, we talked about all the different areas that you need to focus on, whether it is your scope. It's really important in determining what is not part of your deliverable as well. Not only what you're producing, but what you're not producing is going to be critical. So that way everybody is in line. Timelines, very, very critical part of your project planning. Cost, quality, the risk, the purchasing, whether you're depending on any third-party resources, all the internal and external resources, and the communication plan, all of this going to the planning phase on how well you plan and make sure that all these puzzles fit together for a successful outcome. A bulk of your time is going to be in the execution phase. And this is where you follow the plan that you already put together, whether it is the requirements plan or your work breakdown structure that is time-based based on your dependencies, and then your the cost, the budget aspects. What's your budget run rate is looking like? Let's say you have a 2-month social campaign. Are you having the right budget run rate for each week, or is it as per the plan? The quality, are you getting more bugs than what is anticipated? Is your rate of bugs on an increase or a decrease, or more on a stable path? Things like that. And then all the team members are into their tasks here, whether it's the project manager, the team itself, all the different stakeholders. And then everybody is working towards producing this, whether it's a product or a service that you're working on toward this project. And then monitor and control phase. So this is where you recognize the changes, and you need to get into root cause of why this change is happening, whether it is an incorrect requirement, an incorrect planning that need to be dynamically addressed, and then get a buy-in from all your sponsors, whether that increases your cost or pushes out the timeline, and then you adjust the plan, and then you start executing that plan. So change is something that you need to anticipate for and plan for, and ensure that you actually make that part of your whole execution phase. And then this is the final phase where we close everything down. We ensure that the project itself is completely delivered based on the original deliverables and requirements. We have documented the lessons learned. We go through all the measurements, whether it is the metrics that were initially used to track the progress of the project, or the budget that we were tracking from a run rate standpoint, and the initial versus the final budget. And then finally, we need to make sure that all the stakeholders are completely satisfied with the requirement. So that is what I wanted to go over. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I wanted to open it for questions. I also wanted to acknowledge PMI Educational Foundation. If you guys have some time, go ahead and visit that website. It is a great source of information. It is not essentially for somebody that is taking project management as a career, but to me, I've been a project manager for a long time as a career project manager, but throughout your entrepreneurship journey or your educational experience or anything that you do, you can use elements of project management, right? Everything that you do is around planning and execution and adapting, and also minding your cost and timeline and the budget aspects. So I would say it is going to be really helpful for you to think each of your initiatives as projects. So to get into that rhythm and the rigor, so that gives you good cadence to in the framework for whatever you are doing. So in that sense, this website has some really good exercises and videos and some educational material that you can further use. And it has some great templates as well. that'll cut down on the time, on the very limited time that each one of us have on a day-to-day basis.
And what's that website again? Could you?
Yeah, pmief.org. I can actually put that in the chat here.
Thank you. There it is. Enzo put it, pmief.org.
Right, yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. So it's in the chat. Great, thank you, Enzo.
Yeah, so I wanted to open it up for any questions. I'm not sure if there are any questions in the chat window.
Thank you, Chakri. Do we have questions, Enzo or Adriana?
There's no questions in the chat, but I actually had a question for Chakri. So with all your experience in different organizations as a project management, is there one main cause for failure or problems during a project that you can point out, or is it a combination of things?
Great question, Enzo. You know, it's always as project managers, we tend to focus on some of these budget and time and some of these harder aspects of the project. But what gets missed is communication. That is where I have seen things can go wrong. It's always best to plan out ahead of the time, have a communication plan. Essentially, this could be as simple as sending out daily updates to your project team, a weekly update to your sponsor, a weekly update to all your stakeholders. You could do that in the form of a newsletter. You could do that. You can provide a summary on your portal, but that is the number one lessons learned that I have seen, that people have not been informed ahead of the time, and then the project managers and the stakeholders just make some assumptions that everything is right there in the requirements document, or everything is right there in the portal, but nobody really pays attention. So it's really essential that you have this communication plan and also have some checkpoints to constantly see if your audience are getting the type of information that's needed.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And so I saw there were some more questions in there. So Adriana or Enzo, would you mind sharing us the questions from the chat?
Yeah, so Raj is asking if you have any tips for managing projects in the virtual environment.
Absolutely, yeah. I know it's a little tough in the virtual environment. I would say quite a bit of planning needs to go into your projects. The more upfront planning that you do, the better it is. It's as entrepreneurs. I mean, like I said, I've been an entrepreneur, and whenever I get an idea, I want to just jump into it right away, because I get so excited about the outcome that I just don't want to just think through all the different areas where things could go wrong, whether it is the budget. I mean, it's good to have that kind of enthusiasm, but as much enthusiasm as you have, it's best to plan ahead of the time. And it's more important when we are in a virtual environment. When you're in person, you have the opportunity to talk to a number of people and really communicate at a level where everybody is providing a number of inputs for you, but not so much in the virtual environment. You need to really encourage people to provide the different inputs that you need, all the stakeholders, because you don't have these coffee breaks or coffee rooms that you typically have in an office environment. So that's where you need to, as a project manager, create that environment of getting enough inputs so you don't get any surprises at a later time. You need to create that environment of constant communication, collaboration, motivation between the various team members. So yeah, great question there actually.
Great, thank you. The next question we have here is, should you include a backup plan for your project?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's something that you need to plan during the planning phase. Ensure that whatever activity you are planning, so let's say, for example, you have the social media campaign. You're relying on a third-party resource to come up with your images. And you will not be able to just rely on that one company. You may have to have a backup for that services. So that way, when something wrong happens, you need to immediately go on to the next vendor in your list of vendors. So it's always best to have a backup plan for each of your tasks and activities. So that's your risk mitigation initiative.
Okay, so the next question is, how might we design for appropriate results if we are in a new market? Yeah,
that's a really great question. As an entrepreneur, I know that is something that you guys deal with all the time because it's new for you. So as a project, I mean, this is where your classic project management will help you. You need to think of it as an outcome-driven project. And you need to always be mindful of the changes, whether it is a requirement change that you could be getting when you're midstream as you're developing your product. So you need to be agile and you need to be able to go back and quickly assess what kind of impact it has on all your planning that you already have done. So, for example, you have this 2-month-long initiative of coming up with a social media campaign. You plan ahead of the time, but then once you get into your execution phase, you can pivot in a way that is going to be more beneficial to the overall organization. So that's where you need to constantly remind your team to be agile and work towards an outcome that is going to be beneficial for the entire organization. Hope that answers that. I know it's tough being an entrepreneur, but having a framework and being agile is what that's going to help you tremendously.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This was just a really informative workshop. I can't thank you enough. And unfortunately, we are out of time for questions. If any of you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the survey. Enzo is actually sharing right now in the survey link, or in the chat link rather, in the chat, a link to the survey. And we'd love it if you could give us some feedback that we can use to just always iterate ourselves and get better. And one last thing I'd like to do before we leave, if everybody wouldn't mind, I'd love to take a photo together. So if you're okay with that and you want to be in the photo, we ask that you turn on your camera. We will share this on LinkedIn and on some of our social media. So as long as you're okay with that, we'd love for you to turn your camera on, and we'll take a photo to commemorate this occasion. Great, I see everybody fixing their hair, gussying up. We'll be able to do it just here in just a moment. All right, so if you can smile on 3, 2, 1, and smile. That's that. And would you like to take us out, Chakri?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Good luck to all of you here. I'm really, I mean, I went through all the projects that you guys are doing. Amazing. Really looking forward for a great, successful outcomes for you guys here. And feel free to reach out to me anytime for anything. If you need some more information or any templates or any help with your projects. So I'm always here to help.
Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. Thank you everyone for being here, and have a wonderful weekend from all of us at the Rec Innovation Lab. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.